Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast, a show to share stories, insights, and experiences from some of the greatest coaches in the world. I'm Michael Kurkowski, so grateful for you joining me today. And if you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to support the show. All right, let's dive in. Here we go.
All right, and we're live. Welcome, everybody. Tyler, what's up, man? Welcome
What's
back,
up, Mike?
dude.
Thanks for having me, brother. It's great to be here.
I think this is number 3. I think this is our trilogy.
This is our trilogy.
Yeah. So in the trilogy, anything can happen in there. So
This is Return of the Jedi, baby.
main characters could go. You never know who's gonna pop in. All the different type of stuff. But brother, great to see you. It's been a while since we've been face to face in here. So really appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out and offering me another opportunity to have a conversation with you. I always enjoy these.
Yeah. So a couple reasons I was excited to have you back on. One is I've known you for a while. I love you to death, and you've helped me so much in the work that I've done from you coaching me for so long on the mental side as well as everything else on the physical side. But also is you've been a journeyman recently. You've been traveling around quite a bit over the past year in different spots in there. So where you were in Seattle, then went to New York, and then went to Colombia.
So yeah, I was in Seattle for 8 years.
Yeah.
In 2021, I moved to New York City, and I lived there for 3. I guess technically, I'm not living there anymore. All my things are in storage.
Mhm.
But this past fall, a couple friends and I decided to get out of New York for the winter, and we decided on Medellin, Colombia. So we lived there for 6 months, and then I came back. Actually, I was subletting my apartment there, so a friend was staying there. I moved out of my apartment and decided, hey, I'm going to go to Seattle for the summer. Used to live there. It's beautiful out here. I think it's the best place to be in the country in the summertime. So I had ambitions to be here for the summer, which are kind of unraveling in a bit of a different way. I'm here currently, but I'll also be back on the East Coast soon. So yeah, this year has turned into a year of exploration and travel, and I'm just embracing that.
Yeah.
I'm embracing that.
What inspired you to look at Medellin? Like that's not like I'm moving a few hours away. This is like I'm going to a completely different culture and shock. How was that about? Like, how did that come about?
Great question. 2 of my childhood friends have lived there part-time for the past 7, 8 years, and they've always spoken so highly of it and asked me to come visit, which I never did. And during this time, when we were in New York last summer, my friends and I were like, hey, like, where do we want to go? Do we want to go to Europe? Do we want to go to South America? And I threw out the idea. I'm like, let's do some research on Medellin. And the way my friends had described it to me is it's safe, it's super affordable. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, it was not a safe place to be. It was
No, that's
overrun
a
by
very
cartels.
well-known place.
Oh yeah. Yep, overrun by cartels, like especially if you're a foreigner, you don't want to walk the streets. And in that period of time, the city and the government has really cleaned up the area. And they'd shared with me that the locals are friendly, it's really affordable, it's a beautiful part of the world. So having not visited there at all, we signed a lease for an Airbnb, flew down, and had an amazing time. And yeah, everything was true. It's at the elevation of Denver, and it's kind of situated between these 2 mountains. So it's this kind of beautiful valley with heavy greenery. There's not a lot of, from my experience of going to like Mexico, for example, a lot of locals there can speak English. You can get by with a little broken Spanish. In Medellin, nobody knows English. You have to know Spanish. So part of it was I wanted to change of scenery, but then I was also inviting a certain level of discomfort that I know was going to force me to expand myself in other ways so I could survive, so I could get by. And that was part of my mission.
Yeah. When you talk about, I mean, that leaning into the discomfort in there, I mean, it's such a lesson that we're all trying to work on. Like we know like lessons come from discomfort, not in your comfort zone from there. And then going, when you said like it's amazing, what was like elaborate on like the amazing part? Was it just being in a different culture, or did you learn some things about yourself of being in such a foreign, land where you really don't know the language, like completely out of your comfort zone? What was it that you learned so much of being like abroad?
Yeah, great questions. The answers are yes and yes. So I'll actually rewind. Back in 2013, I was living in Connecticut, where I'd grown up, in a town outside of where I'd grown up. And I saw the default pathway for my life. I knew that if I stayed there, this is how my life would turn out. It was comfortable, it was easy, and it was familiar. And while that pathway was kind of set in stone, I knew that if I didn't make a move, if I didn't step outside and go do something different, then I would get more of the same. I would get what I expected. So at that time, I came to visit my sister in Seattle, and I said, you know what? I think I want to move across the country. I don't really know anything about the city. I don't know anybody here besides her. Let me actually go find out. And this was kind of the same thing with Colombia. Is like I'd been in New York for a couple of years. New York is a very, as you know, it's a very lively city.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stimulus there, and I'd never lived outside of the country, and I definitely never lived in another place where English isn't the main language. So I saw this as another opportunity to go, hey, you know what? My life is familiar. It's easy. It's secure. Let me position myself in an environment that I don't know how to survive in yet. And part of that was, yeah, the language barrier. My Spanish was okay when I went. It's still developing, but I knew that there would be a forcing function when I positioned myself here with language, with cultural norms, with navigating kind of just the environment itself. And by way of what my friends had shared, it's a beautiful and safe place. So I just thought, hey, you know, I don't have to necessarily worry about a sense of danger as I do this.
Right.
What better place to do this?
Mhm.
So that was a big driving factor for me, is to go, okay, well, a big value of mine is curiosity, and feeding that on a regular basis, whether it's through small daily or weekly things, but then also some of these larger life opportunities, has been a great way for me to explore that and discover more about myself and discover more about the world. And by going to an environment that's outside of the United States, which I'm obviously super familiar with, and it's very easy to navigate by way of speaking English, it was going to give me a deeper perspective on the world itself, on
Mhm.
humanity and myself. So yeah, that was essentially the essence of my
Yeah.
decision to go down there.
It's interesting. You said, sometimes it's the daily things that we put ourselves into discomfort, but then there's times when you need to go big on it.
Mhm.
It's like, and I think we talk about getting out of your comfort zone in small ways, like, changing up, like being more disciplined in your health and stuff. But then there's those moments of immersion that you need as well. And I think we talk about that a lot, of like the daily consistent practices of putting yourself in that. But oftentimes it's like sometimes there is such a power of immersing yourself in something so big and so out of there. Is there specific triggers that like you have when thinking like, am I in my comfort zone or not? Like you said, things are going really well, like, but you felt like you were getting a little bit comfortable at that spot and needed to change. What's that process like for you that you go through? Do you recognize it right away, or like, do you go introspective and say like, no, I need to make a big change? How does that process work for you?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. I wouldn't say it's a right away thing. I'd say it's more of a gradual development and unraveling of that concept. And yes, to answer your question, it is through introspection. I do really deeply value my solitude and my time with myself. And a lot of that I explore through the process of journaling, which you and I have, we're both big fans of
Many,
and
many
have
times. Yeah.
explored, yeah, have explored quite deeply. So it's through that process that I'm able to really reflect on my life a bit differently and better understand where my mind is at. So it's one of those things where through continual journaling, I'm able to recognize patterns of like, okay, yeah, life is kind of expected. There's I can fathom what 2 weeks, what a month is going to be like for me from right now. And by way of, I feel very privileged. I've had a lot of wonderful people in my life and wonderful opportunities. I don't take that for granted at all. And by way of that, living in New York City and being in that position, I was like, you know what? This seems like a great time for me to go do something different. Let me actually go find out. If I don't like it, I can come back. I have the security of like, well, I can come back to the States. I'm supported. I have community. I have people. And this, yeah, it basically over a period of probably 4 to 6 months, I was understanding like, hey, you know what? I'm pretty comfortable. I'm pretty
Mm,
comfortable with my life. And this doesn't, I'm not saying this to mean that when I'm comfortable, I have to take action. I have to switch things up. But I saw this like, hey, you know what? I'm, 37 years old right now. I don't have any children. I don't own any land or pets. And this seems like an opportune time for me to go do something. I might not have this opportunity in a year from now. So with the space for this exploration, I was like, let's actually take some action on this. Let's go find out. Let me go discover what else is out there so I can live a richer life.
Yeah. I think I think comfort can get very easily wrapped in with complacent.
Yes.
And like, so you can say like comfort is not a bad thing. Like everybody has their definition of words and how it hits you and stuff like that. But I
Mhm.
think when comfort comes into complacency, that's when it starts to turn, where it's like, and you see that. So yeah, maybe I'm comfortable, things are going really well, and that's an okay place to be when it starts to, but then when you start to feel like, oh, now I'm getting complacent in my growth or what I'm capable of doing, that's when it kind of shifts and just rolls in there. So
Mhm.
with your journal, let's dive into journaling for a second here, okay? Because me and
Okay.
you have talked about it a lot, and my practice has changed quite a bit over time. But I wanted to ask you about how you go into like a journaling practice and introspection. Do you lead with questions? Do you do more kind of free, like, just stream of consciousness type work? Like, what's the practices that you've seen work the best for you when going into introspective work?
The answer to this one is D, all the above.
Yeah.
Sometimes if there's a, excuse me, a question or I discover an idea through reading or through conversation, I'll just I'll just go kind of freestyle on that.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's like if I've had an experience that I want to record or I want to better understand after having it, I'll sit down with my journal and I'll just start writing and see really what comes up for me. So if anybody ever read my journals, they'd be like, oh, this actually has really no structure to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's multiple pages for one entry, sometimes it's 3 lines.
Be my worst nightmares
Yeah,
down that journal.
absolutely. Me too. So yeah, it's really whatever's present for me in the moment.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things I've learned over time is when I first started journaling, I was like, oh, I have to have the structure. It has to be this maybe like reflection on yesterday, this recorded history of my life. And the beauty of it is like there are no rules. The rule is you get to create the rules yourself,
Mhm.
whatever makes the most sense for you as an individual. And I definitely know through having introduced journaling to a lot of clients or people that I've worked with, there's a lot of apprehension about this because people think they have to do it a certain way. Kind of like
Mhm.
people think they have to do meditation a certain way. Oh, I'm no good at meditating. Meditating according to what? Journaling according to whom? And when people come in with these ideas of things have to be such and such a way, which is ultimately just a made up way that maybe they heard or they're kind of putting expectations on themselves for, they just won't do that. They'll just refrain from actually exploring it for the fear of, oh, I'm not going to do this right, or I'm no good at it, and then start placing judgments and um, feelings of guilt or shame around that. So over the course of my time, my history with journaling, which I've been doing consistently for probably around 12 years at this point,
Mhm.
it's just it's a beautiful pathway that's just expanded for me. And yeah, it's like I said, sometimes it's recorded history. Sometimes it's maybe just a collection of what happened to me yesterday. Sometimes it turns into poetry. Sometimes it turns into, hey, here's 10 song titles for an album I would write. And
Mhm.
it's just like, yeah, it gets to be silly, it gets to be playful, and it gets to be serious. So that's really what I love about it is it's a playground for me.
Yeah.
My journal is literally a playground for me. I get to crack it open and go, okay, what do I want to do today? How do I want to express myself today? What's resonant for me right now?
Mhm.
And that allows me to develop a deeper level of presence because I know that for me and for a lot of other people in in life, we can get really focused on what's the next thing, what's on our to-do list next. And if we're living our life so forward facing all the time on, oh, I have 50 things on my calendar today or my task list, I have all these errands to do, people I need to keep up with, you really lose sense of right now the gift of presence for yourself. And journaling is, especially writing, is a very deliberate practice.
Yeah.
A very deliberate practice. It takes time to sit down and to write out with a pen or pencil versus, oh, I'm going to type this thing in my phone. Nothing against that. It's just I find that the process of, old school, we'll call it old school writing, it slows down time for us.
Yeah. And there's something with it's something like that textile too of like
Mm,
physically, adding a physical component to putting your pen to paper or your pencil to paper there. So I remember I think it was Kristen Tulloch who is a friend of mine who said she journaled and the one thing was she had to burn every page after she wrote it. Like didn't keep any of it. And it made it more like it wasn't sacred, like it wasn't this
mm,
like fixed thing that needs to be there. Like I'm not going to even like read this again. And I think that's a practice of journaling, as you said, like people get it's hard to start the practice because a lot of the things that we read or have read are finished books. They're edited, they're beautiful, they're perfectly put in font. So when we think of writing, we think that we need to be at that same level. And if it gets sloppy or it's just bullshit on the page, we feel like we're
yeah.
doing something wrong.
Yes.
And I know Chuck Palahniuk says that, the writer of Fight Club, and he said he writes all of his books in journals, like sloppy, because he
Yep.
says if you're typing it in Times New Roman, it looks too nice. It looks too like a finished book, and it's hard to monkey with it. Like
Hmm.
where in the paper you can scratch stuff out, you can draw arrows to it, and it's much easier to really just play around with it at the
Mm.
same time. And that's why I think stream of consciousness is really powerful. But recently, I've been asking a lot of affirmative questions and like holding a question for a week and writing on it numerous times over and over
Ooh,
again.
love that.
And that's been interesting because, often you write a similar thing one day versus another, but then something else just opens up and it just brings you down another path of this. And, just like an affirmative question, something that's leading you to a more positive response of like,
Yeah.
why is this going to work? Why am I powerful? Like actually eliciting into a positive state rather than what are the questions we normally ask ourselves? Why is this happening? Why can't I get this done? Like, where do I need to go? And it comes from a place of resistance.
Yeah.
We're just switching that around and just putting it into a more of an open phase. It leads you down a much different path and you feel a lot different when you finish up that one, product for the day.
Wow. Dude, that's beautiful. I'm gonna go practice that. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have specific times that you do this, or like when something hits you, do you like, okay, now I have something and then you sit down from there? Or do you still keep like a deliberate practice for like your time when you're doing writing?
I'd say the majority of my practice is done in the morning.
Mhm.
It's I wake up, I'll move my body, drink some water, potentially have some caffeine, and then I'll write. However, there are times where I'm like, I might be later in the day or before I get ready for the evening to go to bed, where I'm like, hey, there's something really present for me. I want to go explore this right now. So my journal is almost always with me. It's
Mhm.
almost always within, arm's reach essentially. And there's no barriers for me to go explore this. But I'd say that probably over the past 5 years, it's just been a morning practice. I find that's a really amazing time for me to explore and expand by way of being a little bit more unfiltered. I don't have a lot of the stimuli from the day that has
Mhm.
accumulated that might get in the way.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with all your traveling here and moving around, how difficult was it to keeping with your self-care work, like exercise and training? Like, is it an easy streamline when you're traveling, or do you have to manipulate and change some things around when going into a new environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that's definitely something I've been further exploring the past year. So having not necessarily like a base of command for the past few months right now, I'm getting a little bit more settled in Seattle now, and I'll be going back east soon. The process comes down to is like how am I grounding myself? And journaling is a practice of that.
Mhm.
And then obviously training, as you and I have deeply discussed as well previously, is that's another one. And I'll say with my training, I'll figure out a way. Like that is something is so deeply rooted in my life that I don't miss it. I think over the past maybe the past 8 months, I've missed 2 training sessions. And that's in light of when I was in Colombia, I got a terrible stomach bug for 6 weeks. I was like unable to hold down food, we'll call it,
Oof.
sparing you the details, but I still showed up to train because it's that important to me.
Mhm.
And for other practices, as far as like meditation or some other forms of self-care, those are kind of more moving parts that have taken a little bit of adjusting. Like, when am I going to do this thing? Because as I'm changing time zones, then my work schedule changes as well. I've shifted from West Coast to Central Time to East
Right.
Coast.
Yeah.
And that's constantly adjusting my circadian rhythm as well. So sometimes when I have space, or depending on where I am, I might wake up in the morning, have a few hours, versus I might wake up in the morning when I'm on the East Coast and get right into work.
Mhm.
So that, yeah, that is something that's always top of mind. It's like, where am I? How long am I going to be here? What are the things? What are the minimal effective doses of the things that allow me to take care of myself? Like I said, meditation, some of these other things, morning movement. Where do I put these things into play, and how can I really honor these? How can I protect them so they do get done?
Mm. So it's kind of almost a tier system used. Like these are the first tier, these are non-negotiables, and these can be a little bit more floating. These can be floaters a little bit more.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Well
beautiful.
said.
Yeah. So, all right. I want to ask you a bit about the work now with SupraHuman. I know you just had a huge event and a huge conference in there in Scottsdale, I believe, right?
And Scottsdale, baby. Yes, sir.
Okay. So it seemed like a pretty big event over there.
It was amazing. Yeah, we had just over 200 people
Okay.
at the event, which was our biggest one yet. It was my first event with the company, as I started working with them mid-September last year. And I believe the year before it was about 80. So the company is blowing up like crazy. And it was such a profound experience. It was my first time meeting a lot of my team, including meeting my, the leaders, John and Nineveh, the head honchos of the company. And we were able to share space with each other as a company, but then also I was able to meet a lot of my clients and other clients of the company as well. And I've been to a lot of conferences before. I've been to workshops, I've been to seminars, and I would say this was the most moving one I've been to. There was no, you know, sometimes when you go to conferences, I guess depending on what industry you're in, there might be competition. There might be people with egos who are trying to conflate themselves or position themselves in a higher position, higher than others. Everybody here was on the same mission. Everybody was celebrating one another in their essentially in their expansive vitality of life, and really what's developed for them after becoming a part of this community, becoming a part of this company here. And it was not only that, it was just like, yes, being with the company, yes, being with the clients, but we also had some amazing speakers come through, who I know you know of a couple of them. We had Tim Grover, who was the coach for Kobe and Jordan.
Oh, he wrote Relentless.
He wrote Relentless, yep, and a couple of the
Yeah.
books. So he came through, and he had a such a beautiful, such a beautiful presentation that actually moved me to tears.
All right.
All right. So yeah, man, Tim Grover, he, I won't do it justice, but he had spoken about, we often calculate time in terms of like the clock. And he really dove into, well, how about calculating moments together and presence and time with others as how many heartbeats do we have left? And one of the things he had shared, and I'll try not to choke up because this was deeply,
Mhm.
hit me in the heart, was when he was with Kobe, he he was saying, we need more time, we need more time. And obviously, the tragedy happened with Kobe and his daughter and the others in the helicopter crash. And he had shared, I knew that with anybody in my life, like sharing those heartbeats is one of the most important things that we can do. And man, that hit me right in the feels. I was emceeing the event. along with one of my colleagues, Dr. Taylor Waters, and I had to remove myself from the event after, and just I went in my room and sobbed for a little bit, and it was a very beautiful experience. Like it was so important.
Why did that hit you so hard?
Because that's definitely something that concept right there is the presence with others. Like even this conversation right now with you, I'm so grateful when we get to have conversations, man. Like this is deeply meaningful to me. And there's nothing more important in the world right now than my conversation with you. And it's something that's definitely revealed itself over the past few years with me, is that relationships are fleeting. We might not talk tomorrow. We might not talk a year from now. And this could be romantic relationships. I've definitely had that experience there. It could be through friendships. It could be with family. And the time that we have together is a lot smaller than we think. Yet a lot of us live our lives as if we're going to have tomorrow, as if we're going to have another moment, as if an hour from now is promised. But the essence of life is it's not. Every moment is actually death and rebirth, or death and birth, rather. Every moment is brand new. It's recreated. And sometimes, by way of the existence of life, it just ends. Sometimes it's just death. The moment dies. And that gift of rebirth isn't available forever. So it's just become more present for me of like, you know what? Whoever I'm with, whatever I'm doing, this is the most important thing right now. It's not about the 10 things I have on my task list to do today. It's not about a conversation I'm having later or something I have to get done this weekend. It's about right now. And that's really what hit me hard, was the heartbeats, is sharing these heartbeats, and keeping in mind that we don't always have more time, despite our behavior acting in accordance as if that were true, that we do have more time. So yeah, that got me right in the feels, man.
Damn. It's such a, I mean, it's a beautiful reframe. And you can easily take it on the surface of being like, yeah, that sounds really cool. But if you actually go a layer deeper on that and you realize, the heart I always found the most fascinating is, you think like me and you who are sitting here and everybody who's listening to this right now, all of us, the heart's just going without us thinking about it. It's just beating away, and it's probably at a time just like seconds going on. And those are all real. Like it's like you don't have to think about it, like those things are going on. But eventually, when the heart stops, it's like that's it. There is an ending point on
Yes.
everything. And it's funny that you mentioned this, bro, because I was just doing some writing on the Tao in verse 63 when they actually talk about this, where it's like, find simplicity in the complicated. And the lesson, of Lao Tzu saying, it's like when you break everything down into the present moment, nothing's hard, because all you have is the present moment. And it's like, the journey of 1,000 steps, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one single step.
Yes.
Well, you can't do 1,000 miles, but you can take one step. That's an easy thing.
Yes.
Then take another one, and then take another one, and actually embrace each step that you're doing. And
Yes.
it came to me, I don't know if I heard this. I apologize if I'm not giving the right kudos to this, but I heard this like in the concept of training. It's like if you do a set of 10 reps, you're not doing 10 reps, you're doing one rep very well 10 different times.
Yes.
And it's like if you keep focusing on that one thing at a time, you're finding joy in the journey. Like you're finding joy in everything that you're working with. And it gets into the depth of it. It gets like we're going deep into this, but this is really, I think, the essence of any type of program that you're working on, whether it's strength, whether it be mindset, journaling, business development, relationships. It's like if you take stock in this one present moment right now, and then just keep doing that over and over again, like that's where the juice is. That's the joy right there. So I can totally understand why that hit you so much that you literally were moved. You had to move yourself
Yeah.
out of the event of going there. That's beautiful, man.
A couple weeks, I'll also share this. I love that what you just shared. A couple weeks ago, I was at a used bookstore in Bellingham, Washington, and I was looking at Alan Watts books, and one of them I just cracked open. I wanted to see, do I have this book? Like, what's this one about? And he had discussed this very same thing. He's like, you're not washing dishes, you're washing the dish. that you can only wash one dish at a time. So when you're doing that, you're with that dish. And then the next thing you're doing is you're washing that dish.
Mm.
And I think that is going to the same concept of what you just shared is, yes, like this is it. This is it right now. And there can be joy in it. There can be play in it because this is it. It's not, we create this illusion in our mind that later is going to happen, that someday is going to happen. But that's actually not true. It's only going to be now, now, and now. And that's
Right.
guaranteed, right?
Yeah. Poof. Damn.
Yeah.
That just threw me into a loop right there. There's so many different, measures on that. You know, and I think you can utilize this in a lot of different facets, like gone deep into the mindset side, which I think is really powerful. But I think one of the more powerful ways to do it is to approach it just like you're going into training. Like if you actually like if you're doing your physical work and getting your training, actually stop and like feel your heartbeat going right there. Like that's a real thing that's going on, like that present
Yes.
moment. Tony Robbins priming work, if you ever follow that, like he actually has you put your hands on your heart, like actually feel what's
Yep.
going on. And it's so easy to not think about what is going on at all different moments because we get so tied up in every other bullshit thing that we're doing throughout the day and thinking about the next thing. When you
Right.
actually stop and always pause, that heart's always beating for you. Like
Yes.
it's always right there in that mark.
Yes.
Yeah. So what drew you to the work of going in with Superhuman? Like, I mean, you've been in a lot of different ventures before, of a very successful business on your own, and then, found this. What inspired you to want to join this team? What was the philosophies around this that said, I really want to be a part of this?
My dear friend Ben Oliver had been working for the company for several years, and we had worked together previously at a different company. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're looking to bring on some coaches. Are you open to having a conversation?" And I was like, yeah, let's have a conversation. And during that conversation, he had shared with me the his experience with the culture of the company, everybody involved from the leadership to the operations team to the support team, sales, and the rest of the coaches. And you and I are both entrepreneurs. We also have our own companies. And for me, I definitely missed the experience of working with a team. There's a certain level of for my own experience, like there's a certain level of loneliness when you're out on your own. And I was like, you know what? I did really enjoy previously having like partners, colleagues, and things of that nature. And he had shared with me, he's like, it's a lot of fun. Our clients are high performers, and we're on a powerful mission here. And one of my favorite things about coaching is the idea of the ripple effect. The idea of the ripple effect. So both, with the clientele at SupraHuman, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and leaders and CEOs and founders and things like that. And if I can help affect their life in a positive way, that's going to have a ripple effect into their employees, into their families, into their partnerships, into their friendships. And I'm never going to know that. It's something that's unseen because I'm not living their life. And occasionally maybe I'll get feedback from it. It's like, hey, I've been taking ownership in this part of my life, or I'm transferring my health, and this part, my partner, my wife, my husband, my friend has noticed this and they started making some changes. Like, I love that, but I really love the mystery of never actually knowing what we do, how far it goes.
Mhm.
And that
You
can, I
love
mean,
that. You love that part.
I love that part, man. I think it's
Yeah.
so beautiful to just consider that and to sit with that. And this goes even beyond coaching, man. Like, you smiling to a stranger, saying hi to somebody on the street,
Mhm.
that can transform someone's day. Someone might be in their lowest of lows, but how easy is it to give a smile or acknowledge somebody for
Mhm.
something? But as a means to put that out to the world, I think coaching is a great way to do this.
Mhm.
And I really love people. I love conversations with people, and I love creating space for people to reflect on their own lives in ways that they haven't been used to. And I think that's one of the real benefits of coaching is it helps people get out of their own way. People, but as human beings operate, we have our own paradigms of the world, who we think we are, what we think is going on. And unless we actually, hire a coach, or unless we actually have somebody in our life that's able to challenge us or able to help us hold up a mirror to ourselves, we're just going to continue operating within those same that same paradigm. This is who I am. This is what's possible. This is what's expected. And coaching, you and I have been coaching for many, many years now. It's such a fun, playful, and at times like serious, pathway that can benefit people in ways that they can never expect. It's an opportunity for transformation.
Yeah. It is. It's an interesting world because I mean 16 years now in, but every individual is brand new. It's a brand new puzzle. You have no
Yes.
idea. It's kind of, you take experiences and frameworks and things that you do and you can see some similarities and patterns, but it's still an individual that you have.
Yes.
I used to say this to a staff when I was managing a club. We'd have these brand new kids that would come into the front desk, and I would sit them all down and I would say all the stats of what's going on in the gym. We have 1,300 members. We're training like this much, like people are investing hundreds, some thousands of dollars a month in here. They're changing their lives. They're rehabbing their bodies. Like so much great stuff is going on behind those doors.
Yes.
But the brand new person that's walking in, that's never been here before, knows none of that. All they know is you at the front.
Yep.
And if you don't greet them with a smile and you don't make them feel like good, then all that great stuff that I just said, they don't have an opportunity to be a part of that because they don't know it. Like they just know that this place has a cold feeling to it. It's like,
Right.
so you just giving a smile at the beginning actually can start a ripple effect of changing somebody's life.
Yes.
And when I would say that, all of a sudden, a new 17-year-old kid who just thought he was getting this, job just because his parents told him to is all like, holy shit, like I'm actually part of something.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful reframe on there. And it's interesting with coaching. That's why I love it. Cause I mean, I'm the same as you. I love talking to people and just connecting with different people. And with high achievers, I have a question for you on that because it's interesting. Because a lot of people think that they have it all figured out. People
Oh,
are
yeah.
super successful and they have employees, they have all the material aspects of it, but oftentimes they're still struggling with a lot of the same shit that everybody else is going on. Is
Yep.
there a common thing that you see with high achievers that they seem to all be struggling with, specifically on like kind of the health, the fitness, the nutrition side?
Oh, yeah. I think the common pattern for this, well, I'll say some of the areas of opportunity are overwhelm slash burnout. You and I have talked about this concept before, work-life harmony. I like that. We like that over balance. And then also, communication and relationships. Oftentimes, a lot of these high achievers are successful because they're striving to make up for something that isn't there. So their
Mm.
success is kind of um, driven by their lack of, self-love or lack of worthiness. So they have to succeed in, this area of life, in business or businesses or whatever it is, because of this kind of gap, this space of, yeah, like self-judgment or lack of acceptance of themselves. And like, cool, like you're successful in this area of your life and that's amazing, but you're unhappy. You're
Mhm.
not taking care of yourself. You're not sleeping. You're not nourishing yourself with movement or food. And essentially for a lot of people, it gets to a breaking point.
Mhm.
So there's some kind of nexus point where it's like, oh, you know what? I looked in the mirror. I was at a pool party. I didn't want to take my shirt off. And I thought,
Yeah.
what happened? How did I get here? 20, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, I used to, it'd be no problem. I'd take my shirt off at a pool party. I'd go swimming. I'd feel good about myself. But I've been so driven by my career. I've been so driven by fill in the blank that I started neglecting my body, my mind. And while it's given me this career success, a lot of other things are falling apart. My relationships are falling apart. my my quality time as a parent or as a husband or wife, it's not what it used to be. And I need help. That's usually what it is
Mm.
people don't know how to navigate this on their own, right? They don't have the tools to do this. Otherwise, it'd be taken care of. If people knew what to do and how to do it, they would do it. But they don't, maybe they also don't have the support systems in place. They don't have the accountability.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I mean, we both know this very well. When people don't have any accountability systems in place, they're not, there's no standard to hold themselves up to.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Well, and just the asking for help on that too, because usually when you've been the boss and everybody comes to you, you're the one that holds everybody else accountable.
Right.
To even ask for help on that is a big but what you said something there is so interesting is because often we think that people are driven by things that we want. You're getting pulled towards something when more often it's because you're running away from something.
Oh yeah.
There's an inferiority complex that you have that you're running away from something, and that's a much stronger drive
Got that right.
than it is. And what do we go to that? It's like, yeah, you push on this, but then you get to this point and realize everything that you've got at this point is not fulfilling. What the fuck happened? It's like where do I go from there? And that's when you have to start looking more internally, from
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. I wholeheartedly agree with that. People think that they're they'll make changes in their life if they're driven by something positive, right? Like, oh, for example, let's just say physique. Oh yeah, I just want to be ripped. I want to get a six pack and look good at the beach. People tend to think that's going to be a bigger driver than the feelings of shame or unworthiness that exists in their current body or their current state of being. The pain is it's a much larger driver than pleasure. And
Mhm.
people tend to actually flip those in their minds when the reality of it is like, no, 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 you actually just want to avoid this pain
Yeah.
rather than move towards something that feels good or looks good or whatever.
Yeah. So I have one more question I was curious about with this. So, in all your years of coaching and the experience that you've had and working with, is there a one thing in your mind that stands out that you really changed your mind on that you thought was so important at one point, and then down the line you realized this is not as important as I once thought it was?
Mm. I think in terms of how I coach, I used to think that I needed to tell people what to do. And to a certain point, that's still there. However, listening, being able to deeply listen to somebody, what they're saying, what they're not saying, from my experience and my understanding is that's the most important thing. Not talking to people, but really deeply listening for them because people reveal themselves. Coaching is really about deeply listening to people. And like you said earlier, like everyone's a puzzle. Let me actually take a look at this puzzle. Let me listen for this puzzle because everything's already right there. Everything's already right there. And then once you start to get that, you can really connect with the person. And I think, in my early days, because I started off as a, strength and conditioning coach, it was a lot of instruction. Obviously, a bit different than working with somebody through conversation, but it was a lot of instruction, a lot of presentation. Here's how to do this. Here is technique for a certain exercise. And then from there, I moved into sports rehab. And it was at that point, it's like, yes, I'm teaching people, corrective exercises or how to move well or how to recover from an ailment or an injury or surgery or whatever it is. But it was that point in time that I really started to understand, oh, actually, let me just listen to this person. This person might not actually have an issue with their tissue in their neck. This neck pain's been chronic for them because they hate their job. They notice when they go on vacation, that neck pain goes away.
Mm.
So, be
Hmm.
just like creating space for people to listen. And that was the big game changer for me. And it's just something I've continued deeply exploring. How can I be a better listener? How can I be with this person in front of me right now? And like I said, sometimes it does involve sharing with them ideas, things to explore, but the 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 foundation of this is creating space for somebody to just be. because they might be in a space in life where they don't have somebody in their life, friends, family, partner, husband, wife, whatever it is, that allows them to just be. So by way of being a coach is like, oh, let me actually just open up the door for you. You can walk through and you can express yourself. And that, even just that right there, helps to take down their walls and, you know, allow them to actually breathe a little bit more gently and drop their shoulders. And then we can go, okay, cool. Then from there you can really more deeply explore, okay, what's next? What makes sense for this person in this moment, where they're at in their life right now. So yeah, I would say it was, to simplify that, it was going from speaking to being, or excuse me, speaking to listening.
Yeah.
That's,
you know, and sometimes, the best thing that you can do is just to shut up and listen, right? And it's like, and it's interesting. I just in the last episode I talked about the different lessons that I've learned from this podcast, and one of them was the power of the pause. And you're one of the people that comes to my mind with that. And because I remember even when we would have our calls when you were coaching me, and there was times when I would say something and you didn't answer right away. You sit back and just see, okay, what is the best thing to say? Or just kind of sometimes just sit and don't be afraid of the silence. Just allow things to reveal and to uncover. And when you listen like that, it's like, first, as a coach, I think it's so powerful because you're getting the information from this person and really being with that person in front of you, and it's a much deeper connection. But as a client, I also think, and I feel this from personal experiences, you feel seen more, like you feel safer in that zone, because nobody wants to be told what to do in this life. You might want to get out of pain, like you don't like where you are in the moment and you want to find a way out. So you hire somebody or follow a program to give you some structure. But eventually down the line is you don't want to be just told what to do with your life. You want to have some autonomy with it.
yes.
And the more that you feel like you're listened to and that you're seen from that, the more you're going to be safe and more open to reveal even more out and then have a good conversation from it. And then it's just a beautiful blend back and forth. And that's where it goes from transaction to transformation in that way.
Yes. Well said.
That's absolutely beautiful. So, brother, I think we did it again, man. Hopefully we solved some problems of the world. Dude, I love you to death. Seriously, I appreciate you coming on again. People want to check out what you got going on, everything that you're doing. What's the best place that we can send them over?
Yeah. Find me on Instagram or TikTok at tylerjameswall, all one word.
Beautiful. All right. Well, until next time, I know we'll be doing this again soon. So thank you so much, brother. Listeners, thank you so much. I'll check you guys on the next one. All right. Peace.
Thanks, Mike. Peace, guys.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build a show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait. Go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.